Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've ever felt like your own mind is kind of working against you, just spinning totally out of control over the smallest little things, well, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're going on a really fascinating journey into the actual biology of anxiety. We're going to look under the hood to see exactly what is happening in the brain, why it happens, and most importantly, how we can actually rewire it. Okay, so picture this. You're lying in bed, the house is finally quiet after a long, exhausting day. You're just drifting off to sleep, and suddenly, boom, the thought arrives. Wait, did I remember to send that crucial email? Your chest immediately tightens up, your breathing gets shallow, your heart rate literally spikes. You know logically that you probably sent it, but your mind instantly conjures up the absolute worst-case scenario, right? Your boss's angry response, the entire project derailed, your career completely in ruins. It's this visceral midnight panic spiral over a minor work task. So why exactly does our body react to a forgotten email as if our life is in immediate physical danger? All right, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll explore our ancient security system. Then we'll look at the neurobiology of the anticipation machine. Third, we'll visualize the stressed brain. And finally, we'll wrap up with some actionable steps for retraining your brain. Part 1, the ancient security system. Let's talk about our evolutionary programming. Just think about the sheer evolutionary mismatch we experience today. Back in the Paleolithic age, our ancestors hear a rustling in the bushes. They have to pause and ask, okay, was that just the wind, or is that a predator? Now, the humans who assumed it was a predator, like a saber-toothed tiger, they were far more likely to survive, run away, and pass on their genes. The carefree ones who just assumed it was the wind, well, they didn't really stick around to become our ancestors. Fast forward to today. Our bodies are reacting to a modern digital ping, a Slack notification, an unanswered text, a breaking news alert, with the exact same life-or-death physiological cascade that we used to use to run from tigers. The threat has entirely changed, but our hardware, it hasn't at all. At the very core of this is something called negativity bias. Our brains are biologically wired to lock onto negative experiences and completely minimize the positive ones. And that's exactly why a single piece of critical feedback on a performance review will haunt you for days, while a dozen amazing compliments evaporate by lunch. This isn't a character flaw, it's not some personal weakness, it is literal prehistoric programming that was once absolutely essential for your survival. Dr. David Barlow actually coined a brilliant metaphor for this. He calls it the smoke detector principle. Imagine you're in a prehistoric hut. It was absolutely vital for your internal alarm to go off at the very faintest sign of smoke, because the cost of missing a real fire was death. But what happens when you take that same wildly hypersensitive alarm and install it in a modern home with a nicely regulated stove? It's going to go off every single time you make toast. When we catastrophize, our brain is really just sounding a massive false alarm over a piece of burnt toast. Moving right along to part 2, the anticipation machine. Let's zoom in to the microscopic neurobiology. Researchers often define the human brain as an anticipation machine. Basically, the most important thing our brain does is try to predict the future so we can prepare for it. But here is the catch. To the brain, the true villain isn't necessarily a guaranteed bad outcome. The true villain is uncertainty. Intolerance of uncertainty is the inability to accept that a negative event might occur, no matter how incredibly rare it actually is. Not knowing the future literally, physically hurts our brains because it prevents us from executing a clear survival plan. To explain this better, researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison developed the Uncertainty and Anticipation Model of Anxiety, or WAMA. Let's look at how the brain's attempt to calculate future risks just goes totally overboard across these 5 pathways. First, we have inflated threat estimates. That's when our brain calculates the worst-case scenario as highly likely. Second is hypervigilance. Our amygdala is just constantly scanning the environment for danger. Third is deficient safety learning, meaning we totally fail to notice the all-clear signs. Fourth is avoidance. We hide from an ambiguous situation, which actually prevents us from learning that it was totally safe. And fifth, heightened reactivity. That's our physical startle response just going into complete overdrive. And this next part is wild. Take a look at the highlighted red areas here. Across multiple anxiety profiles, we're talking PTSD, social anxiety, specific phobias, we see this exact same region lighting up. This brilliantly illustrates the anterior insula. It's the region that generates our anticipatory emotional responses. It's constantly asking, how is this going to feel? The anterior insula takes all that uncertainty and translates it into a physical, emotional pre-experience. You're essentially feeling the future pain before it even happens. No wonder we're stressed.
Okay, part 3, visualizing the stressed brain. Let's map these systems out.
So we can actually translate all that complex neuroscience into a highly accessible, color-coded map. You've got your blue area, the thinking brain. That's responsible for logic, planning, and language. Then the red area, the emotional brain, where joy, sadness, and fear are processed. Down here is the green area, the survival brain, handling automatic stuff like your heart rate and breathing. And finally, the orange area, the amygdala, our smoke alarm. When you look at your brain this way, it becomes so much easier to kind of organize what you're feeling in the moment. Listen, if there is literally one thing you take away from this explainer, please let it be this. The brain is not broken. It is doing its job. When that orange amygdala perceives a threat, even if it's just an email, it takes over. And when it takes over, the blue thinking brain temporarily goes completely offline. I want you to hear this. This is not a failure of self-control on your part. You aren't weak. It is a brilliant, protective survival mechanism. Your body is quite literally just trying to save their life.
Which brings us to part 4, retraining your brain. Let's get into some actionable solutions. According to Psychology Today, there are 3 really fantastic, scientifically backed cognitive retraining techniques to help bring that blue thinking brain back online. Step 1 is name the game. When you feel the panic, label it. Just say out loud, hey, there's my negativity bias again. This simple act of cognitive distancing engages your prefrontal cortex and literally weakens the amygdala's grip. Step 2 is challenge the story. Generate a rational alternative. Tell yourself, my boss didn't reply because she's busy, not because she's furious at me. And step 3 is savor the good. Remember how compliments evaporate? Well, you have to manually override that. When something good happens, hold on to it for 20 to 30 seconds. Really soak it in. This actually builds new neural pathways for resilience.
Honestly, I find this perspective so incredibly empowering. Your catastrophizing brain is actually a masterpiece of survival engineering. I mean, it kept your ancestors alive against impossible odds. It's just a little outdated for the digital age, so it overshoots the mark. By understanding its origins, you can stop fighting yourself and start managing the hardware you were given.
Which leaves us with this final thought. The next time your heart races over a totally harmless Slack ping or a delayed text message or literally a piece of burnt toast, will you be able to pause, bring your blue thinking brain back online, and actually thank your ancient alarm system for trying to keep you safe? It's really all about separating the saber-toothed tigers from the toast. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep rewiring those brains, and I'll catch you on the next deep dive.